Stellar's bread and butter was initially kind of the idea that money could move like email. So you'd have a protocol similar to SMTP or email transfer protocols have that same thing for value transfer. So tokenization, real world assets, some of the stable coins were initially issued. A lot of the pioneering efforts in the space happened over there. Lots of very strict primitives on Stellar for just asset tokenization, asset issuance, transfers. So that was kind of where it started. Predated Ethereum as far as the launch goes. And then I don't know that what I think was interesting is the ecosystem grew up. The whole industry kind of grew up around us and maybe chose a little bit of a different path.
All right, Tyler, welcome to Chain Reaction. Really excited to have you here. Talk a little bit more about Stellar and what you're doing over there. Do you mind giving our guests just a quick intro on who you are and what Stellar is, please?
Sure. So my name is Tyler Vanderhoeven. I've been at the Stellar Development Foundation full-time for about 5 years, but I've been building Stellar apps for about 10 years. So about a decade of blockchain building.
Dude, I didn't realize Stellar was around for 10 years already. That's a really long time in this industry.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 11th year, which is bananas.
Congrats. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Full 10 hands.
Yeah. So Stellar, obviously we got a ton of blockchains in the space right now. There's been a lot more over the past few years. Just, every day we've got 5, 10, 15 new chains popping up. Stellar being one of the oldest. Can you give us a breakdown of what exactly Stellar is, what problem it was created to solve? And yeah, just in your own words, what problem is Stellar solving?
Yeah, so the thing that kind of drew me to it initially, my background is in fintech, small fintech companies. Worked for a company called Baremetrics. We did business analytics, primarily using the Stripe APIs. And a lot of what businesses would struggle with was the early days. A lot of software was really expensive, and when you're charging your customers, there's this pretty difficult gap to jump from lower paying customers up to enterprise level customers, and a lot of profit margins get lost to either the 3% fee that Stripe charges, or even just you can't charge your customers really small amounts. So Stellar was really interesting to me because it was super cheap to use, still is. And it was a permissionless, decentralized blockchain technology. So kind of exploring some of the things that maybe Bitcoin had pioneered, but where Bitcoin had begun to move more towards a store of value, that I still felt like there was a space in the marketplace for just money movement, value transfer. And where a lot of the speculation and scams even were beginning with things like Mt. Gox, and we were really starting to the airdrop season. This is interesting, but there's still a room for something that's really focused on just microtransactions, and that's really what Stellar's bread and butter was initially. Kind of the idea that money could move like email. So you'd have a protocol similar to SMTP or email transfer protocols have that same thing for value transfer. So tokenization, real world assets. Some of the stable coins were initially issued. A lot of the pioneering efforts in the space happened over there. Lots of very strict primitives on Stellar for just asset tokenization, asset issuance, transfers. So that was kind of where it started. Predated Ethereum. As far as the launch goes. And then I don't know that what I think was interesting is the ecosystem grew up. The whole industry kind of grew up around us, and maybe chose a little bit of a different path than Stellar had initially charted, or the SDF, the Stellar Development Foundation, had crafted and built Stellar for, which is an interesting story. I think that's something that's fascinating about any sort of nascent technology, is the objectives that the initial developers may set for it, and then what the larger consumers actually use it for, and where it goes, and what that means, and how you have to pivot if you still want to achieve original goals, or how the goals may change as the industry or ecosystem evolves. Yeah, that was really what it was for first.
Yes, initially, it sounds like Bitcoin's initial use case was supposed to be able to use it for payments, right? And Stellar kind of came in. This was when everybody was kind of starting off, when Ethereum really came in to try to make blockchains more programmable and give it more
Yep.
functionality. And a lot of people wanted to solve the actual transfer of value issue, what Bitcoin was initially created to solve,
Right.
kind of not really doesn't really work for that use case anymore. And so Stellar, I feel like, kind of stuck to that in terms of like obviously evolving to fit the market needs and what people were really looking for and wanted to use it for. But overall, like it kind of feels like that core ethos of we want to make it easier for people to transfer money or pay for things and make microtransactions. Like that kind of seems to be what stayed at the core of Stellar as it grew up, as it evolved with the rest of the ecosystem. Everybody else kind of went in different places and had, maybe a little bit more fun, gamified stuff, and did various other things to try to attract that attention and developers and users.
Yep.
Whereas Stellar, yeah, it kind of adopted what people were looking for, but also stayed true to its core use case, to its value prop of letting people make payments and be able to do what they need to do in terms of global commerce and not just like speculative trading and having fun, which is what a lot of ecosystems kind of turn to.
Yep.
And yeah, it makes sense that, that's where a lot of the ecosystem went, but being
Yeah.
one of the initial, drivers of expanding this ecosystem and allowing people to actually find value in blockchain. I feel like Stellar did a great job of sticking to that value prop.
Yeah. It's one of the advantages of being really early, where you don't have to raise VC funds or worry about how you're going to grab some market share. You get to move a little bit more slowly, the luxury, I guess, of moving more slowly and picking your mission and sticking with it. There's certainly adoption or pivots that need to happen and have happened, especially over the last few years with either the foundation or the core technology itself. But fundamentally, blockchain is only useful for a subset of things. And it then becomes the trick of how do you ensure that those use cases are met or those needs are met in the right way by the right tech stack or the right company. I mean, it's the competitive push, I guess, of who's going to actually win here.
Yeah. Actually, I have a quick question. So you said some of the initial stablecoins were launched on Stellar. Do you have any information on like what stablecoins initially launched on Stellar and how it kind of helped propagate that part of the ecosystem?
Oh boy, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, like USDC was obviously really early on. There were a couple of others. I don't even know if they're around much anymore because one of the big issues early on was like, how do you anybody can issue a token. It's more about the entity behind it and how they are verified or how you ensure that like, okay, you've issued one of these tokens. How do I know that if I go and I'm like, hey, I actually want to buy groceries with this, that you'll actually get $1 for it. So that was a lot of the pioneering effort was like how to standardize some of these things. And as far as assets, like I couldn't tell you some of the initial ones, and I know they're not around anymore because some of those entities end up shutting down or get merged into other companies. But the standards are kind of what stick around and how you verify attestations for off-chain data
Reserves.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are a lot of early partnerships and just discussions between different individuals and companies when they were looking at issuing stablecoins and how you do that in a safe way, in a consistent way across different enterprises. And just all of that happened so fast, right? It wasn't like one company. These things all like exploded. And then I feel like every 2 years, there's like a new realization of like all of crypto is about RWAs, all of crypto is about NFTs, all of crypto is about some sort of merge with AI. And that's not really a wrong thing. It's just trying to filter through the noise, and everybody has their own take on it. Everybody's got their own standards around it. And that's what gives rise to so many companies now just being like bridging utilities between all the different protocols.
I feel like we're a very ADD industry. We like to jump around to different concepts and cool new things a lot. And it's really what like the core value prop that comes along with it that sticks through. But like you said, even with the stablecoin protocols and a lot of these programs, blockchains, tokens that launch end up just kind of disappearing because they don't really have a humongous use case. They're kind of jumping on that hype train, but
Yep.
every hype train brings some value to the ecosystem as a whole, which I really like. And it feels like that's
Yeah.
one thing that Stellar does well at, is trying to filter through a lot of that hype and like taking what works and leaving what doesn't. Which is why I guess Stellar is still around, where a lot of the
Yeah.
competitors that launched at the same time,
Yep.
unfortunately are not.
Yeah. I mean, it at some level, it's, I don't know. We definitely I think we can often assume that like a company's only successful if it survives. But I think the innovation that it brings, and I think the things that people learn, like you'll find in the industry, if you look at their LinkedIn profiles, right, they've been at a lot of other companies. Like, I've never even heard of that, but the things that they learned, the technology they built, the software that they wrote, all of that follows them and ends up being really important technology or knowledge that's then shared with companies that maybe do survive. Um, I've used the analogy, and I think it fits in a lot of different places. Is like you kind of have the option of writing a TV series or writing a movie, and for both, like the purpose is a little bit more like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to have a good time, and then I'm going to leave. It's going to be over. We're going to be done. Maybe I learned a thing. Maybe I was just entertained, but it's still, that's fine. Things don't have to be eternal. Like, please don't leave. Okay, come out with another episode, entertain me, keep it moving along. But there's nothing inherently wrong with companies going under and moving on, so long as the people that were there were learning something, and the knowledge that they gained, they can take to another enterprise or another knowledge. I think that's like the knowledge sharing even that you have between crypto and how it evolves security across the stack in a lot of different areas and places, or a lot of the stuff that happens. This is an interesting one with like the WebAssembly stuff that's happening in browsers right now. A lot of that is borrowed from the usage of WebAssembly in different virtual machines for crypto use cases, or the advancements in Rust. A lot of that is coming from all of the Rust-based protocols, which there may not be a lot of friendliness between those parties, but there is a lot of shared code that ends up benefiting a lot of different use cases. And whether or not those companies stick around, or even if they were all that like legitimate, like I don't even know what that means. Meme coins are fun, right? There's nothing wrong with having fun, but it may not be the use case that you want. But if they learn how to do things faster, more efficient, in a more secure way, there's a lot that you can borrow from that. And even if they end up going under, the knowledge shared, the code that's written, those things all help advance who knows what other use cases. And I think it's worth like applauding some of that versus just being mournful or even frustrated with the number of companies that just kind of flash in the pan. There certainly are things that like launch that, okay, there's not a lot there. But more often than not, I think there are things that people learn from and end up going to other companies. And well, when we were here, even at this company you've never heard of, there was a lot we learned and a lot we did. And we'll take advantage of that in this new protocol or this new platform or even this new industry that will benefit tremendously from that. And that's good.
Still very net positive is what I'm hearing.
I think so. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And I guess I kind of feel the same way, right? Like working in tech for a long time. I worked in Web 2 tech for electronics companies, and now in Web 3 for like 5 years now. And, move fast and break things is very real. And we break a lot of things, and a lot of companies, yeah, like you said, don't necessarily, end up being quote unquote successful or staying around for a long time. But they do bring a lot of cool new things to the ecosystem that everyone else kind of learns off of and plays off of and improves.
I think that's good. It's just a good movie, right? Move on to the next one. Make another movie. Some are TV shows. Some of them last longer. Some of them keep going. We have our characters, but let's be honest, like most stuff's just not going to last that long, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's fine. Just move on to the next thing. Don't hold on to stuff longer than it should. Don't make another Lost TV series. Just keep going.
That's fair.
Make something else.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, man. I want to touch on another piece. So you also mentioned having a lot of partnerships, and I think that kind of aligns with this conversation, right? Where a lot of the people that either worked at places and learned things tend to move on to other places and kind of take that knowledge with them, that experience with them. And a lot of big things actually come out of, are born out of having the right partnerships, like scoping out, finding the right partners that you want to work with that bring the value that you need and kind of fit like puzzle pieces together. And I think that's another thing that I've talked to you in the past about, which is partnerships that Stellar has kind of solidified over the years, and being at the core of payments. Like that's your, main value prop is being able to allow people to make payments, especially like microtransactions and like remittance and things like
Yeah.
that. So can you tell me a little bit about how you approach partnerships in the space? Because I know that's a big like point of what makes people successful and what makes companies successful in this space
Yeah.
is partnering with the right organizations and finding mutual value. So how do
Yep.
you approach that? How does Stellar approach that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's one of the biggest advantages that Stellar has. One of the moats that it has is its partnerships and relationships that it's built with other financial companies, which are built like when you're talking about moving fast and breaking things. If there's one thing you really can't do in traditional finance, it's move fast and break things.
Yeah.
And so all of the other competitors, they're moving fast and they're breaking stuff, and it will be hard for them to build up these partnerships, because building partnerships with financial companies just takes a long time, and you can't go down. You can't be unstable. You've got to be really solid and have a contingency plan. And particularly in blockchain, it's scary. Like where's the insurance? What's the uptime? What kind of SLA can you give me? Like, well, we can't. Well, you'll have to run your own servers, and you're responsible. Like it gets pretty dicey in having some of those conversations. So having 10 years of experience, a tremendous amount of uptime, and a proven track record, both of stability, but then of like partnerships, like other entities that have trusted our tech stack is huge, and you can't short circuit that. You can't buy that. That has to be built over a long period of time. It's not the only way to win, but my goodness, is it a good one? And it's a good moat because it's years that surround us, not just technology or we hired some good people. It's if you want to get in this inner circle, if you want to be competing at this level, you're going to have to survive for 10 years. Good luck.
Dude, that's
so I think that's
about bringing receipts. Like you guys really have receipts.
Yeah, exactly. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. Like we can't just sit on our laurels with that, right? Because there's a lot of other metrics that companies look at that other competitors have a lot better metrics for. So just like chain usage or asset issuance, and some of those may be vanity metrics, but like let's be honest, vanity is $1 billion industry. We can't knock it too hard, and so it's a balance to try and figure out what's the right metric to optimize for, what's the right mode to build. How proud should we actually be about the metrics that we have versus just putting in the work, and both optimizing for enterprise level relationships as well as individual developers, and showing up boots on the ground, even though it may not be very sustainable, it's still important. So it's a balance, and I think the foundation has grown and shifted and changed a lot over the years on exactly what's the appropriate amount of time or money or effort to put into each one of these audiences or value props, particularly as different competitors have come and gone. But that the relationships, I mean, things like with MoneyGram, like that takes years to develop that relationship, and it's trust that's so easily broken if you have downtime, and like how you manage those relationships. It's kind of like Stellar is often accused of being the dinosaur chain or the zombie chain. It's like, well, don't know if you've looked around at what takes over the world in the end, but it is zombies or dinosaurs. Like it's stability and ferociousness. Like I don't know. The industry picks a lot of weird memes to throw at it, but like some of those things make sense, and it's a good accusation, but it's also what sets us apart. And so it's taking a hold of those things, diving into those things, and then also welcoming in the other side of like individual developers and individual developer support and really good developer documentation, and having an ear to the ground on what the industry at large is talking about or thinking about, because I think development, like software development itself, is slowly changing a little bit in how quickly things can happen. I think even over the last couple of months, a lot has changed on the regulatory front, and so there's considerations that have to go into that. So it's hard, I think, when you've been around for so long and a big part of your differentiator is your stability and moving slow and not breaking things, to then like find a safe, reasonable way to move a little faster and be a little bit more aggressive. And that is where like our smart contract protocol that we launched a couple of years ago, I think that's really where we begin to lean into that, where you've kind of got two sides of the house. One that has all of the classic bread and butter finance primitives, and then you've got kind of the playground um, to experiment with stuff and be a little bit more, I don't know, risky, I guess.
I like that. That's smart. I mean, I can see where you want to stay stable, like you want to keep the core value of what's made Stellar what it is and what's made it so trustworthy. And there's like a level of self-awareness in there, right? Like you said, you understand that, like, the critiques. I don't even want to call it criticism. It's more of just a critique, comparing it to other ecosystems and chains in the space. But you really like lean into it. And like I understand that we are kind of a zombie chain, but that's because we know exactly what we want and we're not really chasing the vanity metrics, which is
Yep.
perfectly fine. Like, we understand where we might not rank as highly as some of our competitors, but that's not something that concerns us because we know where our core value is. And that's something that we are very proud of. But then you also, like we were saying earlier, right? Like, when you have to evolve and start changing things and start attracting more attention. And the smart contracts is really where that comes in. The big reason why Stellar was so stable is because there weren't a ton of people experimenting and playing around and
Yep.
launching NFTs and building games on Stellar. It was sticking to like what it's known for and what it does really well, which is, I mean, really important to millions of people around the world. Like, not everybody
Right.
has the luxury to be able to create NFTs and trade speculatively. Some people really just want to have money that's stable, that's not like, inflationary, or not, they're not losing value in the money they're holding every day. So they want to
Right.
have another place where they can hold something of value that can keep it more stable, or they just want to be able to pay for things. They want to pay, send money to friends or family, or pay for things that they traditionally couldn't wherever they are if they don't have the proper infrastructure to do so. And that's really where, like, I feel like Stellar found a good use case and a good target demo, and continued to make sure that it was reliable for what it was made for. But yeah, adding in smart contracts and kind of embracing the more fun side of it and the more experimental side of it, I think was a really smart move. Can you give me an example of like what people have used the smart contract chain for within Stellar?
Yeah. I mean,
That's one that I haven't personally messed with that much, so I'd love to actually kind of see
sure.
what's going on more on that side of Stellar.
Yeah, I mean that's where like the majority of the work that I'm doing these days is on the smart contract side. I love it. I'm way more on the experimental, get risky, have fun side of things. I remember my first day at SDF at the Stellar Development Foundation was we were at a conference, and I gave a talk that was Stellar for everything other than payments. Because I see like two sides of it. First is like payments are cool, but if we really want people to be interested, we have to offer more. I think I've mentioned we're like the only birthday party in the neighborhood without a bounce house and a slip and slide, and it's all suits and ties, like a very serious birthday party. But why would you go to our birthday party? We don't. There's ones with slip and slides and bounce houses. Like, okay, but I want to have fun. I want to go. I don't know, enjoy myself. I don't
Yeah.
want champagne donuts. Maybe I do, but I also want to slip and slide. So the idea being like, let's open up both just like fun things to do on chain while still ensuring that the core technology is secure and safe and still available. But again, like given the opportunity as an entrepreneur, what would you like to do? Do anything you want. It might be a little more expensive, but it could be anything. Or you can only do what we tell you can do. Like, of course, you're going to choose. I would like to be able to do whatever I want. Will you probably end up doing at the end of the day through your own research and development the things that you would have done on Stellar anyway? Absolutely, most likely. But it's that entrepreneurial opportunity. Like I don't really know what I need, and so I would prefer it to be more open ended as a tool chest. And let me figure out what I actually need. So even though it costs a little bit more on like Ethereum, that's absolutely why they get used and are so popular. And we're a far more common choice in the early days, and why they grew so much is you could do whatever you wanted. It came with all kinds of problems, but those problems largely get solved because there's so many people there. So it's like a different ethos, but they are absolutely winning on the adoption front because of that. And I still am not convinced that they'll win in the long run if they don't fundamentally solve some of those underlying technical problems. But in the short term, certainly. And they do have massive developer mindshare and energy because of that choice of letting developers do whatever they wanted. And will it be like one chain to rule them all? I don't know. Maybe one protocol, or there will be like a leading protocol, but some of that remains to be seen. But when it comes to like fun things to do on chain, right? The other component of it is like how arrogant maybe in some ways is it to say like we know as a foundation what best to build on chain. Well, we probably don't. And if we open up that entrepreneurial opportunity, even for like legitimate financial like things that should be on blockchain, probably if you open that up to the whole world of developers, it would be a better financial primitive. Like you'd come up with better solutions. So why not open up, even if it is like pretty low level, you'll have to optimize it quite a lot. If you really want to launch this, you're going to need to go through an expensive audit. But even like, okay, given all of those, there still is the, probably if we open it up to the whole world, they will come up with a better solution. I think tools like the Open Zeppelin team, Uniswap, Aave, right? Those are not coming from Ethereum Foundation. They're just really, really intelligent financial primitives people that have built stuff on top of Ethereum that are amazing financial services. They can move fast because they're dedicated teams. They don't need to ask permission. They don't need to join the foundation to start doing stuff. It's an open network. So I think you end up looking at that like, man, that would be nice if anybody on the planet. Yeah, okay. If it's going to be good, it needs to be audited, and they have to be super crypto crazy people. But there are those people out there. And I bet if we built them a good tool set, they would actually use it and they would build better services and tools than we could. We focus on consensus. We focus on uptime. We focus on like the core of the actual protocol, but then the contracts and primitives that get built on top of that. Why don't we outsource that? And we outsource that by building a smart contract protocol. And that's absolutely what we're starting to see. It's not surprising at all because it's what happens in Ethereum. Financial primitives get built like lending and borrowing. And there's one called Blend, which is a really good lending and borrowing platform that's way better than anything we could have built on our own because it's built by a team that's dedicated, that absolutely loves that has gone to university and spent like a huge portion of their life just focusing on that singular specific problem. And then off top of that, we'll get built wallet tools and application tools that take advantage of that, and that just continues to grow and expand. So I think that's a basic example, but just the idea of opening up the tool chest to anyone to be able to build anything is a really good move. And if you build it in the right way, the actual VM, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be more expensive or less secure. It just all kind of comes down to the tool chain that you build on top of it. So the SDKs and the documentation and the example contracts and whatnot that you provide that will kind of determine how legitimate or secure the applications that end up getting built on top of that. But it will be better and it will move faster than if everything had to be like a protocol level change.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's so it kind of leads me into my next question. And it's something that I think we chatted about previously is bringing AI into the developer workflow, right? And like, I know this could turn this conversation into a much longer conversation, but I definitely want to touch on it just because it's such a big part of the developer toolkit now. How do you see AI changing the developer experience on Stellar specifically? If you have a broader view, more than happy to dig into that as well. But
yeah, I feel like it's a little bit easier. I work at the foundation. I really love the Stellar tech stack, but I'm not a Stellar fanboy. Like I'm decentralized tech, self-sovereignty. Those are the things that I really care about. It's one of the reasons that I'm still at Stellar, because when I look around at the competition, I still think this is the best tech stack, and I want to do what I can to see it win. And we'll see what happens. Who knows what'll happen next? Who knows where people will go? I care more about like the people in their brains that care about these things than any specific individual technology that they've built. But all of that to say, we really have like, we're on the fringe, the horizon of a really different type of entrepreneurship and technology. And to kind of like back up and address maybe the elephant in the room of like Stellar. What do they do? Who are they? I feel like I heard about them like 10 years ago and they did like a Facebook airdrop or something. And I haven't really heard anything. Like, well, let's be honest, we haven't won. And we're not like, we have really good technology and we have some fundamentals that maybe make it a little bit hard for us because so much stuff is speculation. And I think kind of therein lies the problem for me. Is most of who's going to use this technology, who's going to adopt this technology and really build innovative technology is people who have access to like really fast internet and they have, good educations that are, kind of at your leisure. You've got access to all of the, English YouTube. technology, like learning, especially nascent technology, is pretty vendor locked to the West. And that's going to necessarily press most entrepreneurs to like solve their own problems, which are not the problems that the rest of the world has, and what blockchain is really good at solving, which is things like stability and security and sovereignty and self-identification. These are not problems that we have as Westerners, but billions of people all over the world have this problem, but they like traditionally have not had access to like high-speed internet. They've not had access to the ability to learn or write this software. So they've had their problems, but they've never really had the ability or access to solve these problems for themselves. And so what ends up happening is all of this great technology gets used for meme coins and speculation and toys, which is, I'm thankful that we kind of have the luxury to not have to have real problems. Our problems are I'm bored and I have all this extra money that I want to play with. Like, great, fantastic, congratulations for you. I guess you can use crypto for that and, make lottery games and goofy cat NFTs. Like, great. I'm not even going to slam that, but that's unfortunate that the majority of what gets built is that kind of stuff when would be so good at solving really hard problems that all of these developers do not have. They don't feel that pain. And so it's hard. It's difficult to be an entrepreneur for a problem that you don't have, but it's really hard to be an entrepreneur for a skill set you can't get, or for code you can't write, or for a SaaS company you can't afford to fund to hire the developers to build. And so this is why I'm so bullish on this advent of AI, where anybody can build a SaaS company by just typing in a chatbot. They pay $20 a month or less to write software, like actually write software. That's never been possible before. And so you combine those capabilities, those AI capabilities of anyone can now write the software necessary to solve their problems that they specifically have. Mm-hmm. They have access to it, thanks for Starlink internet, Elon Musk. We got high-speed internet over most of the globe now, relatively accessible, relatively affordable. And then you add on top of so now you've got access to what you need to write software, and you've got the tools in crypto to actually make money accessible and finance accessible and able to be moved. If those things can merge together, now I can keep playing with meme coins and speculation, and people who actually have those problems all over the world with money security and high inflation and no access to lending, they can actually solve those problems themselves without having to raise a tremendous amount of money from foreigners. They can do all of that for a whole lot less in a really specific way for their own communities, their own people. That's something that we've never seen before, and I don't think we've really got it yet.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen really, really fast. Mm-hmm. Once it's always kind of been the case of technology's vendor locked. And if you go overseas to some of these countries that are a little bit further behind, it's kind of like mind blowing where they don't have access to some of these tools. You're like, what in the world? It would be hard to live like this. I'm out here playing with meme coins, and it's always been difficult to cross that barrier because we just don't have those problems, and the world tends to be small.
We're spoiled.
But once it expands and you have access to those things, you don't have to be, building software for problems you don't have. People can just solve their own problems and use this technology in ways that it's far more suited for. Mm-hmm. And that's extremely exciting. So now, rather than it being vendor locked, Stellar actually gets used through AI tooling, through people who legitimately have those problems. They can solve it way better than we can. They can build their own companies, their own businesses, without it having to be through some Western company or through some larger enterprise who has offices all over the world. You can have just some entrepreneur out in a hut with some Starlink internet or a cell phone, talks into it, and it builds a SaaS company. That's incredible. That's amazing. And it's actually possible. It's actually possible right now. Yeah. I just think a lot of the gap right now is did you know that this was possible? Here's how you do it. So it's like some education, maybe some grants to kickstart some of this stuff. But I think we'll start to see the snowball effect. At least I'm very optimistic that we will, where AI is used. They're almost like less coders and programmers and designers, and you're more just like this jack of all trades AI prompter, where these applications get built on the fly. They get built hyper specific to the location, to the language, to the context. Their self healing is the application gets used and it comes up with issues, and you just like write software in a fundamentally different way, where instead of you trying to like build a thing, you're trying to consistently and adaptively solve a specific problem, and the software just kind of molds and shapes more like a plant and less like a building, where it grows and it changes and it morphs in how it solves the problem, because AI is just really, really good at doing that, of responding to contexts and information and modifying its output. It's pretty amazing. And we'll see what exactly happens. But just that capability of it not being locked to like the only people that could really use it in the right way, in the way that I'd love to see it used, is by people who don't really have that problem. That goes away. And so that barrier that's always been hard to make that jump of like, you should care about these problems that you don't have. That's a hard sell. There's a business opportunity. Great. I don't know that I'd love everyone to want to solve this, primarily for like the ability not to exploit it, but really they're just looking for a profit margin, versus just like, me and the people I care about have a problem and I want to solve it. If it makes money, great, but I really want to solve this problem. I feel like we're kind of the same way. We have different problems where it's like, I'm bored, and that's a problem. And I want to make a video game, and if I make money, great, but I really want to be able to have me and my friends have fun and be happier or whatever. Like, it's nothing wrong with having different problems, but the issue arises when you've got this really large knowledge gap, where there's just a huge percentage of the world's population who are not getting helped because the knowledge is locked in areas where people don't have those problems. And so they don't feel that pain. And I think AI will unlock that for folks to actually solve those problems.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree. Like, I feel like we're still fairly early in that process. Over the
tremendously
past,
early.
6 months, like, I started with getting ChatGPT to generate some code for me and copy pasting that into an IDE. Now I use Cursor and just prompt straight in the IDE, and it's creating an entire code base for me. I can do it in Replit too. I can just generate code in Replit and run a live app right there and share the link with my friends and let them play a game with me that I designed in a couple hours. Like, it's moving super, super fast. I feel like there are still some roadblocks in that process. Like, there are still some like fundamental things that you need to understand about how how code operates and how to secure the things that you're building, and make it more cost effective and optimize it and things like that, right? Like, there's some fine tuning that still needs to be done, but overall I think it's still it's moving much, much, much faster than I expected. And for Stellar specifically, like, I started with Solidity. I'm not a software engineer. I mostly vibe code when I'm building stuff. Solidity was like the first blockchain language that I really started learning in like 2019, 2020. Just because it fascinated me, that like blockchain itself, cryptocurrencies fascinated me, and I wanted to be able to launch something of my own. And when I started hearing more about Rust, especially through Solana, I think that was like where most people first learned about Rust. I didn't realize that it was much bigger than just a blockchain language. Like, I connected it to Solidity. I'm like, oh, Ethereum made Solidity, Solana made Rust. Like, I just thought it was built just for this, until I think after I spoke to you, that's when it kind of hit me like, it's more secure. It has a much larger use case than just in blockchain. But the issue is it's more complicated, and it's harder for someone to learn, especially if they don't have a background in software engineering. And so I feel like that's going to be a big player in terms of people building on Stellar and protocols that may not be, the most user friendly for like new developers, for people that are just getting into the game. But bringing AI into the mix kind of solves those problems too. So if you have some engineering background or that type of mindset, it doesn't really matter what language you're working with now, what framework you're working with now. It's really just about how creative you can be. Like, if you're a good project manager, then you can build something that's super successful without having to understand, even if the code is complicated, it's okay, because it's not really your problem anymore. It's just your problem to find a creative solution to a problem that you have. And then, you get the robots to build it for you. Like, you don't really have to worry about that complication. So
I agree. It's a really amazing time to be creative, and to have a problem and want to solve it, and now you can. Will it be the best? What does that even mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think like such gatekeepers on code quality and code
Does it work
security,
for
and like,
you? I think
I
that's what
don't
really
like
matters, right? At the end of the day.
code is always insecure, and if you want it to be more secure, stop having humans write it. Have a machine that can actually test it, and I mean, there's a lot of tooling that needs to get built, but these are problems that humans who now have AI can solve without them having to have this like gatekeeping education, I guess.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things for me as I've been learning Rust to be able to write smart contracts is you can have it write it, but you can also have it explain it. And if it gets bugged, you don't just say fix the bugs, you say fix it, but talk to me about it. Like help me learn what I don't know so that I understand more. Like, how do we learn anything? We learn it through context, we learn through explanation. It isn't like some of it's like, yes, I want to achieve a specific task, but I want to understand, I want to grow in my knowledge. But like how much do you like when I'm writing JavaScript, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know about the V8 engine. I didn't, it's actually not JavaScript. It's like C++, or, if you're using Bun, it's Zig in the back end. Like you have no idea how these things work.
Dude,
There are a
I didn't even
few people who do, but the majority of people who like write software have no clue how this thing actually works. And like, have you actually looked inside your computer and it's all ones and zeros and it's silicon and it's super, like, come on, don't be so proud as to think that you're a really good programmer and AI is not safe or secure. Like you write bugs all day long and you know it. AI is going to help so many more people be able to write software. It will be bad software and it will get better over time. Just let people let them build, let them solve problems. Like every day there's a new exploit, there's a new bug, there's a new vulnerability, and AI is going to help solve those things. It's not going to make it worse. And I think some of it comes from a place of fear where it's like, I spent years and years and years learning this stuff and I don't want to like lose that. We're like, you're telling me this isn't valuable anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not so much telling you it's not valuable. I'm saying it's just so much more fun now to code and to build. And yeah, you're a developer, but now you're also kind of a designer. Now you're also kind of a project manager. Now you can also like have these ideas and ship stuff. And is that scary to you? Maybe it is. I don't know. I think it's fun. And being a naysayer of inbound technologies is usually doesn't end up too well. Yeah. And if you want to be on the right side of ensuring that it gets used correctly and has the appropriate safeguards, then you need to be on the let's work with this. Let's make this good instead of like, let's shut this down.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I've worked with a few different software engineers in my time, and I've seen like firsthand experience of somebody that's been an engineer for 10 years, high level at Amazon, and is like, yeah, no, dude, I'll write this myself. And we're building an AI product, and they don't want to use AI in the process of building that product. And then on the other side, I have, somebody that's a freshman in college that's also helping with the same product, that's running circles around this senior engineer because they're using AI. They're like, yeah, I have this idea. I've already built things like this for school projects. I can literally just prompt it, and I know exactly how to prompt it for it to be able to build what I need. And then I can go in and troubleshoot and make changes if I need to. So you can ideate so much faster.
Yeah, so much faster.
If I can build faster than an experienced engineer, then that experienced engineer needs to start using the tools I'm using so that they can then just speed up their process in terms of spitting out code. Like a really good metaphor that I've heard quite a bit at this point is basically just like AI is a junior engineer for you. It's a junior software engineer. That's really all it is. So if you are currently a junior software engineer, you've learned, you've spent time, you've gone to school, you've taken a boot camp, and if you've learned this knowledge of how to code your own software, you can now use this and just 10x how quickly you're outputting your code. And now you can worry about being more of a manager, a supervisor, and like really fine tuning your prompting skills as opposed to trying to write everything from scratch and not using the tools that are available to you. So I'm 100% on the same page, and I really like. It bothers me. I feel like because I don't come from a software engineering background, it's much easier for me to adopt this technology than it is. Like you said, sometimes it can be threatening if you spent a decade learning and honing your skills on coding it yourself. It's scary to kind of be able to give that away to a computer that costs next to nothing to write this exact same code that would have taken you 4, 6, 8 hours, maybe a week to do. And this computer can spit it out for you in 10, 15, 20 minutes. Like that, I can
Yep.
understand why that would be a little scary. But also, yeah, if you see where this is going, then you need to, I think, just kind of push past that and really start using it and adopting it as much as you can. And like it becomes a superpower at some point. If you have
Yeah.
a traditional skill set, why would you not want to use this superpower that's being given to you to just speed up what you've been doing for years anyway and
Yep.
do it faster, make it better?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a
Um,
lot of the is, I mean, there's like two comments, I guess, in there. The first is just like encouraging. I remember when AI was first coming out, I dabbled with it a little bit. It's like, this kind of sucks. It's writing a lot of errors. A lot of people would prompt it the wrong way. They're like, build app. It sucks. You can't build my, and then they would describe a very specific type of like, well, did you ask it to do that very specific thing? Or did you just say build app, please? Like you get kind of out of it what you put into it in some of those prompts. So prompt better, but then also try it. Like really try and play with it. If you hate it, stop using it. Don't use it if you don't want to. I like haven't helped you in a few years, but maybe every couple of months, try again. Every couple of months, ask it some specific. Maybe don't try to build a whole app. Have it be a small piece. Maybe try and really have it help you with something that you wish you were better at, like building a front end, building a pretty CLI output for whatever CLI tool you're building. So you focus on the things that you're really good at, and then the things that you just are monotonous and that you hate doing, or that you wish were pretty, but they're just not, and they never will be because you don't want to spend your time there. Try and plug AI into that and just experiment. That's what kind of sold me on it. Was I'm really good at some specific type of programming, and AI actually isn't very helpful in that arena. But for the front end, or for me, it's a lot of like complex mathematical algorithms. I didn't go to university. I didn't go to college. I don't have a computer science degree. There are a lot of these math things. Took an IQ test, pretty well ranked. I'm terrible at math. Don't tell my employer. But AI helps so much in writing like complex math equations. And ironically, it actually makes a lot of sense because those are the things that most programmers have problems with. And like Stack Overflow and Google, like the stuff that is all over the internet is like, how do I do this complex thing? And so there's lots of example code for AI to train off of. Or like some of the simpler stuff, maybe not so much. So like play with it. And then the only other comment is like, I think it was true, and it probably at some level is true, that like AI is just it's like a junior level engineer. I don't think that's going to be true for very long. It's going to be like a senior level engineer that's just a little bit loopy, right? They hallucinate a little bit. And so you kind of have to help them make sure they're sober before, massage the content a little bit. But I see this actually a lot when I'm writing Rust or writing some of these more complicated mathematical algorithms or trying to get some sort of complex. I do a lot of image generation. So it's like looping over pixel graphics and stuff, like just weird math stuff. It's pretty good at doing that. And I would have no clue how I would write that. AI can figure it out. And then I'm more the junior engineer, or at least the project manager's like, hey, let's calm down a little bit. Let's take a little break here. Let's reprompt it. Let me ask the same question in a different way and see if you can stop being crazy and give me the right answer. It is a ton of fun, and it is a completely different way to interact with creating something. I think that's one of the things that's been most refreshing for me, and maybe the scariest for others, is like how much of a different workflow it is to work with AI, and how almost primitive it feels. Like I'm typing, chatting, hey, Mr. AI, if you would please. It's a completely different way to program. The vibe coding idea, where it almost feels lazy, or like there's no way this code can actually be secure. But then to realize like, oh man, this is all right. This is actually really, really good. I love it. I love it so much. And it does. Part of the reason I love it is from the past that I have, of just, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I think we've talked about it. I was an actual farmer, like planting pumpkins and picking apples, and didn't know how I was going to make ends meet. Like I come from this very self-taught background. And so I love this for past me, or for my own kids, where they can focus on just having fun. Like they can have a problem, and now the barrier isn't, you're going to have this big degree. You're going to have to dedicate your life to learning something before you can ever actually begin to use it. All of that kind of goes away. And now you've got these really accessible, almost enjoyable tools. Like if there's one thing this next generation is really good at, it's typing things out quickly and using lots of acronyms, which is what AI really likes to work off of. So I think that'll be good. And I'm excited for that future of people just being able to solve their problems and not have to have a whole lot of education, I guess, in
Resources and
between those
education.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, no, dude, I don't think I could agree with you anymore. I think we vibe because we have a similar history. Not, I wasn't a farmer, but no college degree. Like I started for pre-med and I was like, I don't want to be a doctor, but I really wanted to help like advance the medical field. I was like, I feel like things haven't progressed as much as they should have with the
Yep.
advancements in technology that we've made. And I always pictured myself doing things to be able to improve these very complicated fields, but just I didn't have the attention span to sit through 4, 6, 8, 10 years of college to be able to do that. And so, yeah, I jumped from, working in retail to fixing cell phones and then getting into learning about Solidity and smart contracts and blockchain. And now here I am. I can literally build entire applications. I can build like internal CRM systems. I can build a game. I can build all these different things just off of literally vibe coding. And like I've created a system for myself where over time, like I said, I started with ChatGPT, just asking it for random snippets of code and like just experimenting a little bit. And I kind of did exactly what you said. I gave it a couple months. I was like, this is just not good enough for me to really make progress. And I'm spending a lot of time
Yep.
prompting and reprompting and testing things that don't work. And then I came back, started using Claude. That worked way better. Started using Cursor IDE with Claude 3.5, which was great.
Yep.
And the second 3.7 released, I was like, yo, this is so much better. Like it just keeps getting so much better in such short spans of time
Yeah,
that like
exactly.
I can't leave it for too long because when I come back, it's completely changed and it's gotten so much better. I just pull up an old project. I'm like, let's just redo this entire thing with this
Yep.
new version. And it's so well improved that it really blows my mind every time I come back to it when there's a new update. And I'm really excited about what that means for the future and whether it's me, my kids, or just future generations in general. I have this vision of there aren't going to be any more standard applications. Like people are just going to build how they want to use things. Like they're just going to tell their phone or their implant how they want things to happen, and then it'll build the code for them, and they'll be able
Yep.
to do things exactly how they want to. And that time is coming much faster than I think we expect. Like I'm picturing Cyberpunk 2077, but in real life and hopefully not as dystopian, just really cool, technically advanced future where we have to do very little actual work and we're solving real problems, just literally with ideas, which sounds crazy to say, but that's what we're approaching, and it's insanity,
Yep. I love it so much.
dude.
It's
Yeah.
just a lot of fun. I mean, having spent so many years and so much time trying to solve basic problems and, you beat your head against a wall only to realize I forgot a semicolon or something like that. The
Yeah.
amount of time that's been lost over silly problems that AI will not have is super encouraging for the speed at which we can innovate and create new problems, new paradigms, I think, of how, like kind of like what you mentioned, where we have less static SaaS applications and more of these ephemeral responses, I guess. Like you've got a problem, you want it solved. This MCP stuff is kind of a big unlock for me in this idea that I've had ever since I kind of saw AI at first. Like, okay, we're not going to be building apps anymore because it's stupid. It's a one size fits all. What if you didn't have to do that? What if you could have a unique problem and it gets solved in a very specific way where you've got LLMs that kind of provide the glue between all these services, the logical glue that ties these things together in response to a very specific prompt that's very unique to you. And now I don't have to have a one size fits all application that I've subscribed to. I can have 100 different little widgets that all get tied together through LLM glue, that build me my response, build me my application in real time. That's going to be such a better experience, and I think mentally better, where we don't have all these apps that we're logging into and trying to sort out, and subscriptions that we're losing money to. The world just, I hope, gets a lot simpler and a lot more specific in the ways that it resolves our issues more specifically. But you still have these services that don't serve individual people and are trying to like claim mindshare and claim attention from humans. They're just plugging into the LLM glue And then people just use these LLMs to solve their problems, but in really specific ways rather than 10 different
In
applications.
general. Yeah, that's fair. Dude, that's I'm really excited about the future. I know we were talking about Stellar and developers and partnerships. AI is really what gets me excited, and I think it's a big part of the developer ecosystem and developer tooling. That's really changing the entire game from how we understand it and how it's historically been for decades.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I think cryptography is a really good example of this where it's, oh my goodness, trying to get a user to benefit from this is tremendously difficult. You've got regulatory uphill, you've got scams that you've got to overcome. Like, oh, we're different. Sure, that's exactly what a scammer would say. Like, there's so much that you have to try and climb over to get to a point where it actually is useful to someone.
yeah.
When a lot of that goes away because it's just a widget that gets plugged in, someone else has opted to trust it. It's going a lot more through like Airbnb models of 10 other or 100,000 other LLM services have used this tool in the last month. That like okay, I don't have to market to humans anymore. I just have to get it in the LLM system and it get plugged in, and now they have access to these financial services and tools. That'll be so much easier. I mean, we've been fighting this battle for 10 years trying to get a really good piece of software to solve really hard problems, and it's so hard to do when you've got so much to fight against.
Mm-hmm.
And you make a whole bunch of progress, and then some goober L1 comes along and is just a scam and sets us back 5 years. Or you've got a legitimate company that takes a lot of money. You're like, oh, this is actually good. Like, it's not us, but at least somebody's winning. And then it turns out that, they run away with all the money. It's like, oh, I knew this should have been a nonprofit organization. I knew this should have been organized differently. Like, we should have known when it was VC backed, this was going to end poorly. And it sets us back again. You got regulatory hurdles where it's like, okay, I don't really understand the regulation. We don't have the budget to hire, a specialist in every single country. Man, it would be nice if, I don't know, we had some sort of tool that could read everything there is to know about law in Turkey and just figure out what the best way forward is and make this tool available in a compliant way to their populace, and they can figure it out. We're just an API. We don't have to because if we get involved, then we're kind of liable.
Yep.
But if it's just an LLM, so much of that gets removed, and
Abstracted.
It's really cool. Where the marketing completely changes. It was one of the first things that I was like really excited about. The marketing's just going to change because it's going to get terrible where everything's AI generated. Then it's going to get really, really good because it won't be profitable anymore to market with images. Like, we're going to stop marketing to humans. We're going to start marketing to LLMs, and that'll be great because then I don't have to see all these ads. I just have to ask questions, and then it'll promote specific MCPs maybe that will be helpful to solving this specific problem that I have. Like, at the end of the day, the best ad is something that I want. It's just that its ability to target me. Like, the reason I don't like ads is because they're irrelevant. Once they stop being irrelevant because it's really intelligent, well, that's an amazing future. I'm very excited about that one. And LLMs kind of provide this capability to actually be way more intelligent about the types of tools that it provides to me for how we solve things. And Stellar then becomes just another one of those tools, especially in these jurisdictions where we're like custom built to solve those types of problems. And then potentially, an MCP type of server becomes a recommendation or becomes an easy plugin, and you're launching tokens and you're depositing money, and you've just got this app that you're interacting with, and it just does everything for you. You don't have a wallet that you're downloading. You don't have this bank that you're connected to. It just ties everything together through a chat. Send money to XYZ, deposit into a lending protocol, manage my money, rebalance my portfolio, make me money, LLM. And it just does it because it's not that hard. You add time to money and it will generate more. It's not that complicated. It's just all of the components that in the third parties and the agreements and the KYC that makes all that really hard. But when you remove a lot of the human interaction and the difficulties that I think cryptography really just starts to solve, all of those things change and get so much easier. Will that happen quickly? Probably not. But I'm optimistic at the very least.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. It's funny you mentioned Turkey. That's one place that I've kind of had some focus on. We went last year, I think, and we noticed there were like physical exchange stores for cryptocurrency because the regulation there is very, very different. And like you said, you've got 50 different regions, you've got 100 different countries that you're operating in, and they're all very, very unique in their regulatory system, and things change on a daily basis.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, it's definitely a complicated. Like I have a lot of respect for Stellar because, like I said, being around for 10 years in this industry already is a big win, and it's very impressive. But working to solve real problems for people all over the world while being in this very like gray area regulatory environment in a lot of the places where you're trying to help solve a problem makes it much more difficult, makes it very expensive and time consuming. So to see, you guys really adopting AI and different ways to make this progress a little bit easier, a little bit faster, a little bit smoother and safer for everyone involved, I think it's commendable. I'm really excited to see where Stellar takes this in the next few years. We've already been talking for an hour, so I'm going to let you go soon. But I do have like just one last question. What do you see for the future of Stellar? Say like 5 years from now, next bull run. What do you see fundamentally changing about Stellar, if anything? I don't know if like the smart contract chain has really is going to play a bigger role or not. That's really what I'm curious about. But in your terms or in your view, what do you?
I can tell you what I want to see and what I'm working for. I will say I'm done trying to predict the future and more trying to make it.
Beautiful response.
And that is very much on the smart contract front, and particularly around programmable wallets. And I really hate the current wallet ecosystem. I don't like downloading wallets. I don't like interacting with my wallet. I don't like reviewing transactions. That's all garbage. I just want to click and have it do things. And I want it to be safe. I want it to be secure. I want it to be non-custodial. So a lot of the work that I'm trying to press forward is for standards and services that make managing, controlling my money less of an activity and more of like a widget or an attachment to the other things I'm doing in my life. And it's almost just like, how it used to be in Web 2? Let's just do that again, except let's have it be non-custodial. Like, I think we have this weird idea that like Web 3 is an upgrade. And in many ways, it's just not. It's an alternative. It's a fork. And it's a really bad UX fork. It's a really good like security fork. But the UX is garbage. And it's just not going to get adoption until it's at parity or better than the UX that we have in Web 2. So we need to stop treating like an update until we're at parity, until it feels like, right? You log in with your Face ID, you're like that. You don't even think about like your authentication. You just hope that Google and Apple do good things. And that's unfortunate. We have to hope that. So if we could remove that like liability, have it be self-custody, but still keep the benefits of things like Face ID and, all the work that we're doing with zero knowledge proofs and stuff. If we could pull all that into the wallet experience, oh my goodness, that'll be so much better. The problem is we've built up over 10 years. It's like a whole industry that's like, you need to download a wallet. We're going to do everything in the wallet. And you can't just unwind that because that's like the whole ecosystem. Yeah. So you have to go a lot more slowly and work with wallets to figure out like, okay, what does the future look like when you don't exist? Maybe you wrap up into like an MCP type of server and you manage like the infrastructure for MCP. It was kind of similar with RPC service providers where you may not be the protocol, but there needs to be data layers in between and you can provide that service. I'm hopeful that wallets will move more in that direction of whether it's MCPs or AI agents, right? I think I maybe have a future where everybody uses AI and that's not going to be a quick future. That's going to take time. So there will be interims. I'm always going to be more on the like cutting edge side of things. But I do think if you want to make the future so you don't have to predict it, it will be like, I want to see a world where people are just interacting online and there's just a wallet. It's self-custody. It's easy to manage. They know how much funds. It's easy to move stuff around, but they don't have to fiddle with 24-word passphrases and logging into things and keeping track of all this stuff. It just happens and it works and it's non-custodial, but it doesn't feel bad. So that's a lot of the work that I'm doing and with passkey wallets, and I'm calling them policy signers. So it's like smart contracts as a signer. So you can write authentication contracts. So how transactions get verified are themselves smart contracts. So instead of having to review like the thing you'll notice about transaction review is like, you don't really read it so long as it's coming from a domain that you trust, or it's a repetitious transaction. Like I've said yes to this 100 times. I'm going to say yes again. Well, then why don't we just turn this into a smart contract and stop having to review the same thing over again, so that only these things can happen and the conditions are always the same. But not only is it more convenient, it's actually way safer. Because boy, I sure hope you're not, just glossing over the details of that transaction. But let's be honest, all of us are. And whoops, you missed a zero and all of your money's gone. Or oops, that contract address changed and you didn't notice that, and now all your money is gone. That happens, and it's unfortunate. And smart contracts can solve that if they actually have the capability of being authentication primitives, which is something that we built into our smart contract protocol. Is where like authentication itself is something that can be programmed, where in most of the blockchains, you just have some cryptographic primitives to deal with, like the ED25519 or the SecP256R1. But with Sorbonne, with our smart contract protocol, you can actually program your own logic into the authentication flow, which makes it really easy to mix and match other cryptographic primitives or other logic, like this contract has to be called, or these details have to be true, or the balance has to be under this amount. And that ability is really amazing, particularly when you start to implement or tack it onto things like the AI stuff, where you could basically be interacting with completely separate contracts and basically have to approve just that contract interaction. And now that third party can behave or interact with your wallet, but only on those really specific conditions that contract exposes. So rebalance my portfolio. I would like you to do that, but I want to be sure that that's all you can do. And it's only for my benefit. It's only for this asset. It's only for this duration of time. Great, sweet. Here's a contract that says yes to all those things. Go forth and do safe things in a non-custodial way. That future is something I want to see happen. That's the work that I'm involved in. Mixing all those things together with AI, very, very bullish. We'll see how fast it moves forward, but
yeah, no, dude, that's
it'll be amazing.
I've actually been very interested in that exact line of conversation. I guess I know BankerBot was like a popular one on Twitter. There's Blormy launching for Solana, also like using Twitter authentication.
Yep.
I see a lot of people kind of working on this idea, and it's not obviously like fully cooked yet, but a lot of people are kind of thinking along the same line. So I'm definitely really bullish on it. I'm excited to see how you solve that exact problem. And genuinely, Tyler, this has been an awesome conversation. Went on longer than I planned for, which means it was a great conversation. So I'm very thankful that you were here to chat with me today. Do you have anything that you want to add to our listeners, to our viewers, before we hop off and let them get back to their day?
Thank you so much for having me. Super enjoy the time. I love to talk about this stuff. Again, build technology, use the tools that we have available to us. It's an incredible time to have problems and be able to solve them and not just wallow in self-pity. It's an incredible time to be alive, to make stuff, access to incredible tools. Go and find a problem and solve it, make the world a better place, and have fun while doing it.
Dude, thank you so much. I couldn't have said it better myself. Go forward, build, have fun, experiment. Tyler, again, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great conversation. And I hope to keep talking to you in the future, man.
Sounds great. Thanks so much. Appreciate you. Bye.